I did say at the beginning that Tech 2 would bring the heat. Not as hot as it is outside, but that was pretty awesome. So one more time, a round of applause for everybody who's gotten up here today. As I mentioned earlier, Interac doesn't just make sure that we're de-risking what's next. We help by building the bridges to get there. And I'm mainly excited to be back up here because it really takes us back to the human side of building. And so I would like to. It's my pleasure to introduce you to my friend Aditya, who I'm going to give an opportunity to introduce himself. But first, I'm going to give a little bit of background. He's somebody who embodies what build for purpose truly means. He's not just a founder. He's a bridge builder, growing up in Panvel, India, to studying at Carnegie Mellon, to launching Beacon, the purpose-built app for immigration that I mentioned earlier. His journey truly is a masterclass in resilience, relevance, and reinvention. With over a decade of experience scaling mobile-first products, he's held leadership roles at Paytm Canada, PayPay Japan, and Reliance Geo before co-funding Beacon as CPTO. So tonight we're going to explore the story behind the startup. So give me a round of applause. All right, so let's start things right back at the beginning. Tell us about the spark. What really brought you to bring Beacon to us, and tell us the story about the problem that you were solving.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me here. So I've been extremely fortunate in terms of the opportunities that I've received in terms of being able to live in different places all over the world. So I've had the opportunity to live in 5 different countries. Started when I was 16, over 3 different continents. So Asia, Europe, US, um, and on different types of visa classes as well. Right. Not all visa classes let you do whatever you want to do. So have faced a lot of those challenges in being able to do to live in the best way that I can. Right? And so that has come into Beacon. But what really triggered the idea was so this is my second stint in Canada. The first time that I came here was 2014, and then for work reasons I had to move to Tokyo to set up PayPay. And I came back in 21. Good things had happened. Paytm was going to IPO, biggest IPO in India ever. So good things had happened. Wanted to look for a bigger space, and none of the banks would give me a mortgage. None, right? And it's because I was earning in Japan. My T4s didn't have the right numbers, um, and so it was almost like it reminded me of, hey, I've felt this way before. And that was when I had first come in. I came here as a student. Nobody would give me a credit card. How many of you had to put down or open a GIC worth $500 to get a credit card of $1,000 credit limit? There, I
We
see
got
a
some
couple
hands
of
up.
ups.
There
Yeah.
you go.
So, and that experience basically still continues, right? And in 2021, again, here we were in Canada, where it was, rightly so, open arms welcoming immigrants, but there is no support system on the other side to allow them to thrive and make a life for themselves here, right? That's where we started. I started thinking about, hey, wait a second. If I'm having a problem, there are at least 10,000 other people who are having this problem, right? And that's how Beacon came to be. That's how it started.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So moving into, some conversations about the early days, being in the trenches, the early struggles, and then, leading to your first big breaks. Hopefully you could tell us a little bit about your first MVP. How did you validate it with real users?
And this is about beacons, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it b- we had to fix. First of all, I take I'm a product person at heart. Whatever, as I said, if something has happened to me, there are 10,000 other people who have faced the same problem. That is where it started, right? So started designing solutions that would solve my case, right? But then quickly realized that, hey, wait a second, you know, everyone's immigration experience is extremely contextual, right? And that context depends on the macro situation of what the country itself is doing like. I'll give you an example. I came in, as I said, 2014. Um, I was able to, I graduated, and then I was able to rent a place, putting down 2 months of rent in advance, right? Which is legally what is required. Uh, Now, if an immigrant is coming in, they they have to put down at least 12 months of rent in advance. That is, if they are allowed to rent a place here, right? So the context and the requirements are completely different now, right? But the question was, now how do we find this out, right? Did the initial thing about um creating a Google form, sending it to people, my friends out there. But in you have this gut. Your gut tells you that the responses that you're getting in the survey forms, it's not the whole story, right? So there was something missing. So of course, okay, um went to Dundas Square and started talking to people randomly, asking about their experiences. Most people would not talk to you. The ones that did, they only would give you 3 to 4 minutes and then walk away. Of course, people have to do their thing. So never wasn't able to have those deep conversations to actually get the insight, right? And then this one fine day, I was traveling to Mississauga in an Uber ride. And my wife had taken my son for soccer practice, so I had to Uber there. And that's when this guy, basically, we just started talking, right? And this Uber driver, told me about his entire immigration journey and the different challenges that they have faced when they have had to, get get integrated into the Canadian life. And he told me about, how he cannot he his academic credentials weren't valid here, so had to drive he was a product picker at an Amazon warehouse, and then he got certified, took a loan and got certified so that he can drive a forklift because he'll get $4 an hour more. uh, and this guy has a PhD, right? Uh, Cannot talk about this thing with his wife because he was the one who initiated the move. So he cannot go back and talk to his wife about that. Cannot tell folks back home about the challenges that he's having because does not want them to worry about, right? So all these sort of things happened, and this person was telling me in a 40-minute ride. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is great. And after that, I took 52 more such rides to gather insights from different people. And there, every time you go, you know, you go to take so after that, it used to be, okay, who do I want to talk to? Oh, I want to talk to, maybe I want to get a Sri Lankan's opinion. Okay, book a ride to Scarborough, right? You want someone on the Asian side. All right, let's go to Markham. And that was a great time because I was in an Uber. The person was right there. 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes of alone time, one-on-one time. You won't get that. Or imagine how many thousands of dollars you have to spend to get that sort of alone time, right? And that is basically how we did, finding the need finding, right? And that's where our pre-arrival strategy came in, right? And that's how it started.
No, and that's perfect. So for any of you founders out there, not only do you need to know your customer, you have to keep knowing them and go to all different corners of the GTA to find out who you're serving. Thank you so much. I mean, just from some of the beginning stories that you've shared, it's clear that Beacon isn't just a product, it's a platform for belonging. And you touched on some of the human side of it just now in terms of the way that you pulled your research and continued to engage with the market. But tell us about the growth of Beacon itself and the inside. How do you approach your first hires? What kind of culture were you building to wrap around this product and platform of belonging?
Yep. So our first hires were or rather, I think 100% of our hires right now have come through personal connections and referrals, right? So these are people. The initial set of people were people who I had worked with in the past, and then people get their contacts. So we haven't paid a single dime to a recruiter. Sorry if you are here. Um, to build our team, right? And I think the other beautiful thing about this is that there are so many people who, if not themselves, they have seen their parents who were immigrants, they have seen the struggle that they had to go through, right? So in some way they have been connected to it, and they want to come help, or even offer, if someone's graduating, they're going to take another job, but it's 3 months later. There's so many times they come over to us and, hey, can I help you out with something in the meantime, right? Okay. So there is something about the mission that is resonating with people, right? The other thing, so that is how we build out our initial team, right? And you are absolutely right that it's a very fintech is almost, we are a fintech at heart, but it is, like, for example, bill payment is an extremely mundane activity, right? But so my father is still in Mumbai, right? And he's not in a place where he can make his bill payments himself, right? So I'm here, I have my son here, etc. um every time you make a bill payment, right, or the number one feedback that we get, or the quote that we get from our users, is as if we were there. It's like, how did you feel? It was like I was there, right? And the feeling that you get, um, it's very difficult to, English is my second language, it's very difficult to articulate this, but use the app, you'll understand. uh, the feeling that you get when you tell your family member that, I've taken care of something, I've paid your bill, versus I've sent you the money, now go and pay the bill, is very, very different,
Mm-hmm.
right? You feel it in here as soon as you hit that button. And we do real time, so we have a better bill payment experience from here to India than here to Canada, right? So we get real time confirmations. Um, so as soon as you hit it, you get confirmation email in under 30 seconds, and you feel it here, not even here. It's almost like there's a sigh of relief. So that is the sort of emotion that you get. And so please, those of you can experience it, have the opportunity to do that, please try it out, right? Sorry, I
No,
went
no,
I went
no, no. That's great. They're here to listen to you and not me. And I think everybody here can identify with an opportunity to help a loved one, help a family member, and create that moment of finality by saying, "No, I've sent you the money. You go do the legwork. I've actually closed that loop from you." So thank you for sharing that very real life use case that you're looking to solve. You're a founder now. You're here sharing your story of what you're working on now, but your career has been built by a litany of mobile first deliveries, including your work at Paytm and PayPay in Japan. So you're a founder now, but to the founders in the room, what do you wish someone had given you as a piece of advice on day one?
um, okay. I would say the one thing that I've learned here is that, a lot of people say focus on the big picture, right? um and I would say that the big picture actually is very distracting and it overwhelms you, right? So I would say focus on, break the break it in the smallest possible chunk, right? And focus on executing that. Don't focus on what your competition is doing. Do whatever is in your control, right? For the other way probably of saying the same thing is, um Mount Everest, right? Even to climb Mount Everest, there are 7 stages, and the goal of each stage is just to get to the next stage. That's about it, right? You're not thinking about summit stage while you're just at base camp, right?
Yeah.
So it just is, I would say, just think about the next sprint ending, not spilling any of your sprint work from when you are planning, and just do the simple things right. That is something that I, as a founder, I keep on reminding myself, right? I've had the opportunity to do 0 to 1 things, a couple of times, but as a founder, I still have to keep telling myself, Aditya, don't, screw the big picture. Focus on this. Focus on your sprint. Complete that, right? Just get that one contract signed, and then execute on that contract. And so take it in small chunks. would
No,
say.
I love that. So looking to level up as a founder by focusing on your sprint by sprint and the milestones that are ahead of you. That's good. We talked, Christian was up here earlier and he talked a lot about the capabilities of founders today, how the founders as we know it are continuing to evolve. I love you. So pull the curtain back and a little bit of the secret sauce. We met last week, went for a couple beers over down in the financial sector, and you told me a great story about how you really leveled yourself up from your skill set at a time when AI wasn't there to do so. You told me about a certain kind of book that you were reading in order to get started in coding, and I think that's a great story. Maybe you could take us back there.
Yeah, that was just about, there's been so much talk about using AI, and if you can't use AI, you'll be left behind, and that is all true. But I was telling him about, I'm a BCom grad, right? Um, and I taught myself to code using the dummies books. And so coding for dummies is what I went. I still say, yes, use AI, but to know how the system really works, to know how the program language, to know how long it takes to compile, to know how long it will perform, scale, blah blah blah, you have to write the code yourself. So while all those things are happening, please learn to code yourself, go through books, and just do it yourself, right?
Yeah, and I brought that up just to say, continue to invest in ourselves, whether you're a founder or any other kind of employee. There are no barriers to take that next step to level yourself up. So whether you're going to the library and you're looking at some for dummies, I'm scared to tell you the versions of that book I checked out at one point in time, but I think it's an incredible story to say the tools for us to level ourselves up to evolve. We're not going to get left behind if we continue to make that investment into yourselves. Finally, from our side, I'm going to wrap it up with a little bit of a shout out to the North Star that I talked about earlier from Interac, which was around digital prosperity. My colleague Zamir, who's here in the crowd, we've been on a bit of a roadshow this spring, really talking to Canadians coast to coast about what does digital prosperity mean to them. To Interac, it means access, among many other pillars around what the digital Canadian, how they can continue to live their lives. What does digital prosperity mean to you, and how do you think Beacon's helping us take one more step towards it?
I think it's all about access for us, right? For our community as well, our members that we are supporting, we call our users our members. It's all about being able to access the services, be it financial services, be it immigration, legal services that you need, insurance. There is so many things that happen in an immigrant's life. So we are extremely focused on how do we make the most relevant service in the customer life cycle, in an immigrant's life cycle, available at the right time, right? So and we strongly believe at Beacon that we have to, that, you know, when we talk to our customers, they don't complain about facing challenges, right? they the one thing that they keep telling is that we did not know about this, we did not even know that we would face this challenge, right? And that's why we are always emphasizing on pre-arrival, right? So pre-arrival access to information, pre-arrival access to financial services, pre-arrival access to getting your academic certification validated in Canada. Those sort of things is what we are focusing on.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today at Startwell. This is only the beginning of a wonderful week of programming from Tech2. At Interac, it's really important for us to get out at events like this and extend the value of our brand to those people in Canada who are really making a difference, such as Aditya Beacon here. So I would welcome you to grab him after, have a conversation, grab the team from Interac, continue to build your network and your alliance, and have a great week.
All right. So actually, James, we were going to take
Yes.
questions.
Okay.
I think if anybody has questions, we could take 2 quick questions, and then I have a few announcements before we close off.
Aditya, so first of all, thank you for bringing this brilliance to Canada. I had a very similar experience when I brought my folks from Ukraine because of the war. When I realized what I can do with their bank app and their pension card, I was blown away. I'm like, how come this functionality exists? How do you battle adoption? So You brought this brilliance, you have this amazing framework. How do you battle the speed to adoption in Canada with all the great ideas that we can bring from back home?
Is this about how do you acquire and retain? Is that the
No,
question?
meaning like adoption of your innovation here locally.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh. I think
I know it's a hard one.
yeah, I think it's so a lot of what we do is based on personal experiences, right? And as people like myself who have come, there was a big wave of people who came in, right? And as they sort of, it typically takes around 3 to 4 years to get settled, and then sort of gain confidence to say that, hey, I can take risks to go do things or change things the way they should be, right? So I think I would say I would start seeing a lot of those millions of people who came in start coming up with solutions and ideas and their own startups in the next 2 to 3 years. So I think that's time will lead to that.
One last question.
Yeah, I really loved the part where you say don't focus on the big picture, don't get confused on small steps. My question is, your clients are the kind of the from lending perspective and such, not the best in terms of their new immigrants. They probably don't have a job. How do you plan to raise or create revenue stream?
So let's double click, right? I think that's a misconception that immigrants don't come in with money, right? If you double click, and international students on an average is paying somewhere around $30,000-$40,000 to come here, right? Someone who comes in with PR comes in with at least something around, again, $50,000-$60,000 hard cash in their bank account that they put in here. Plus, there is more property that they have back home, which they over a period of time bring over. People who work here, I mean, both on skilled labor and on professional side, they get paid more than the average salary in Canada. Right? So that it's now the system is now the trick is about how do we recognize that they have that cash flow and how do we establish credibility. Right? So one of the products that you will be releasing in about 3-4 months is ability to build your credit history even before you arrive in Canada. Right? So that will basically help people. Companies here don't have to change their models or their risk adjudication methods. They can keep doing whatever they are doing with Equifax, TransUnion, etc. But now you just have a credit file way before you do. Right? Those are the sort of things that we are doing. Is putting the immigrant in the middle and designing products and creating products with their immigration journey in mind as such. So again, pre-arrival, right? That is what we focus on. And we are launching money transfers also, real-time money transfers from here to India, in a week.
You heard it first here. Thank you.